My purpose is to build leadership in myself and others, whether they're in a pharma company or a lighting company or a car company or a pet food store, whatever they want to try and do. Am I helping somebody? And it's interesting also that I've learned over the years, and I think you heard the quote I may have said before from Mark Twain, the older I get, the smarter my dad was.
What is up, Impact Heroes? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rick Ornelas. Thank you for spending some time with us today because we know time's a valuable resource and we're going to make it worth your while. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just for listening, but for who you are. I know you're sparking change to make the world a better place every day, and I am humbled and grateful for your efforts. It takes all of us doing our part to spread positive change, and that's what this show is all about. Motivating you with stories of struggle, courage, and hope to empower you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others.
Are you interested in having Rick speak at your event or business? Here is what others have to say.
Did not know his story, and it was so inspirational, and his presence on stage, his authenticity was just incredible.
I absolutely loved his performance. It made me feel some type of way.
If you're looking for a speaker for your next event, hire Rick. I promise you this, you will not be disappointed.
Visit rickornelas.com to book him today.
Welcome back, Impact Heroes. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to our latest iSpark Change social impact hero, and boy, are you guys in for a big treat. I've been super excited about this guest. So our guest today is an experienced keynote speaker, author, and mentor. He has a wealth of experience that spans over 3 decades of a career in Fortune 500 companies. He's dynamic, informative, enthusiastic as a speaker, while also being funny, heartfelt, and engaging as a storyteller, which is one of my favorite traits of his. He's an expert in motivation, communication, and all facets of leadership. He has an innate ability to speak with passion, energy, and authenticity, which makes everyone feel as if they are the only one in the room that he's speaking to. Along with all that, he's a certified coach and presenter as a channel partner with Ken Blanchard Management Company, a licensed practitioner with Discovery Insights Behavior Development, a certified practitioner with DDI Targeted Selection, and a master trainer with Yukon Management and Negotiations, just to name a few of his accolades and accomplishments. We don't have time for all of them. Too many. But he's someone who knows that in the battle to be right or kind, it's better to choose kind. He's just an all-around great human being and someone who truly cares about helping others become the best versions of themselves. So please welcome my friend and mentor, Jim Trunick.
Wow, very kind, Rick. My goodness, so nice to hear your voice and glad to hear you're doing the things you're doing. And thank you so much for having me with you today. And I look forward to being with you and having some conversation that we've always enjoyed.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Jim. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I've been looking forward to this, as I said in the intro. And, you and I have known each other for a long time. And, I've always considered you a mentor and friend, as I said. And it's really great just to, from being like the student to have the mentor to say, hey, here's someone I look up to, and now I can have you on my show.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I'm glad to be here and look forward to the conversations, man.
Yeah, very cool. So you and I first met when I was working in the corporate world, working at Allergan, which you worked for many years, and you can share more about that. But and that goes over a decade ago. So we've known each other for quite a bit, and I've followed what's going on in your career as you've moved on and done more speaking and writing, in your book, The Core of Leadership. And then also, you follow what I've been doing as well. But I've always considered you, even though I didn't have this podcast and this platform, I've always considered you, a quote unquote hero to me, someone I looked up to, right? I mean, I've never been I'm not a big hero person in like the Marvel sense of the word, right? Or the comic book sense of the word. But, and just, my dad, I considered one of my heroes because, a great role model, right? A great role model, yeah. A great leader, someone like that. And that's where I would put you in that same category. So the first question I always ask people on this podcast, as we consider them social impact heroes, is, I see you as someone that spreads positive change throughout the world because your actions have a positive effect on humanity. So that's by my definition, social impact hero. So before we get into, what that all means, my question is to you, do you see yourself as a hero?
Boy, it's a great question, and I think we all want to have high esteem. We all want to be thoughtful of ourselves, and we're trying to do the right things, and we're growing and developing. I would say that to use the word hero around my name for me is not common, not my experience, not what I would say about me, because I think to be a hero is reflective of the followership of somebody else that might want to say that or whatever. The thing I was thinking about, Rick, is you're kind of going through the introduction of me and the things I've done with my career, and you've known me for so long. People get introduced as experts. They get introduced as masters. They get introduced as having all the answers to some extent, and that's truly not where I'm going. For me, the hero aspect of this is that I am a student. I want to be a learner. I want to share, I want to listen, I want to have new depths of thoughts and knowledge as I leave conversations. And sometimes I think of masters and experts and heroes as sometimes the ones who aspire to tell other people what to do, or to guide, or to suggest, or to advise, or recommend. And that leans more into achievement, helping that person and others achieve things. I'm less about the achievement of myself or even of others, except the leadership that they learn who they are, what they want to embrace, what they're good at embracing, what they're not good at embracing, a higher degree of self-awareness. A higher sense of self-awareness is higher leadership. We will aspire to want to be around people who are self-aware, and it's an ongoing process. It's a journey. It's things we need to continue to work on. And I've prided myself over the years to say, there's some things I've had some success with. I can give you a whole list of things that didn't go as well, and those are even more prevalent for me in many cases. So it's the balance of those things, I think, that makes a hero, trying to have other people want to follow that says my purpose is to be more of a student of things and a learner of things, less a guider or suggester of things. So they hopefully lean towards their more leadership as opposed to their sense of achievement.
Yeah, and I love that. I love what you're saying about the self-awareness, because that's something that I think you instilled in me years ago. When I learned under your tutelage, is that self-awareness and is that desire to be a lifelong learner, and that to be a true leader, you have to always realize that you don't have all the answers, that you are constantly growing and evolving, and that we're all learning on a daily basis. And so, in that capacity, as you look at some of the, the great leaders of our time, I would say that the ones that I admire, they were always learning, they were always evolving. And, I'd look at someone, like a Martin Luther King and say, yeah, he was a hero, right? Because, and he was someone that was always learning and always growing. And so I guess it's just, maybe it's semantics of what hero means. Maybe there's 5 definitions in Webster's. I have to look it up, but I'd say with, for our context, what you described, that's exactly why I see you as a hero, is the fact that you realize that you are learning, want to learn and want to lead, and are focused on the growth and development and, not the achievement.
And you look at the best leaders that we know in our society, American society, Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, and others. They had mentors, they had coaches, and they were open to having more suggestions and more ideas. And they will share with you, if they've talked with you, that the reason they had some success is because they surrounded themselves with people that were willing to be honest and open and determined to help them be successful, not the speakers talking to them, but the person that they were coaching, that they had great success. And if it comes from things I say or do, great. If it comes from somebody else that I know that helps them in some way, that's wonderful too. If it's things I didn't say that help somebody, that's good too. I think it's helping other people become more successful in what they want to try and do. And all of our great leaders that we can think of have had that success in their accomplishments too.
Yeah, and one of the common threads with all of them is that they've all looked to help others, and yes. I think that's key, is that when you go out with that heart of service, which is important for me, you could say servant leadership, or you can just say service, which is how I, phrase it, that when you look to serve others, then that's where you can truly have impact, right? And that's where you can truly help people.
And if my servant leadership doesn't help you at your company, you wind up leaving the company or you don't like the job, that's not my goal. My goal as a servant leader is to help you enjoy being a better you. Maybe you'll find some things you learn about yourself, some aspirations and some motivations you didn't know you had before. It's not so much about becoming a better employee. I want to help people become better people. John Wooden once said that I'm not interested in trying to help people necessarily become professional basketball players. I'd like to help them become better people through the sport of basketball. Mm-hmm. That's a big mindset shift that a lot of people think they're supposed to help you become a better employee. Maybe. If it leans into your values, into your morals and your beliefs, then maybe. But to try and help people become better people, if they want to be a better parent, if they want to be a better spouse, if they want to be a better care of their parents, or not, they don't want to do any of those things. They want to do some other things in business. It's how you listen. It's how you understand what their motivations are to try and help develop that inside of them. Read this, write this, try this, keep a journal, do other things. It's not me saying do these 6 things and voila, you got success. Yeah. I might say 1 or 2 things so you don't have failure. Don't do this and don't do that. But I won't necessarily lean into that as a key to success.
Yeah, and I think the key there is helping people become better people. And yes. I love you use John Wooden as an example because I know that's what he was all about. And it's that in itself. I see that in itself as heroic, to want to help others become better people. Like I said in your intro. So every hero, Jim, has their origins of kind of where they became, how they became, who they are today. And, we're all a product of our life experiences and everything. But if you can share a little bit about your story, how did you go from a zoology degree, back, years ago in school to where you are today, as the leader and speaker and author?
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a degree in zoology. So basically I had life science background and enjoyed that and had some success in those curriculum and was thinking about applying to veterinary school and becoming a veterinarian. And my grade point and my references and all that wasn't high enough to get into veterinary school. And so I took the life sciences background and joined a very small pharmaceutical firm as I graduated Ohio State, my only school, and wound up joining that very small organization. And that was my only job. I stayed there for 36 and a half years. I had 17 jobs in different areas, all of them with Allergan Pharmaceuticals, based in Irvine, California. I graduated Ohio State in 1977. I moved to California, Irvine, 1990. 12 and a half years, I was back there in Ohio as a sales representative, a district manager, a regional director, and then I got a chance to get promoted into marketing. And that became a chance for me to learn more about advanced leadership, advanced branding, advanced personal successes, challenges, failures. But through it all, I was learning. I was enjoying the chance to grow with an organization that had aspirations to help patients, and I stayed there the whole time. And that's interesting. That's great. And thank you for the longevity for me anyway. It didn't bounce around, which maybe now today you should more do that. My dad worked for Procter & Gamble for his only job. He went to Ohio State, as a matter of fact. He went to the U.S. Air Force during the Korean War. And then he joined Procter & Gamble, and he never left. And he had patents on Bounty paper towels and White Cloud tissues that are still being used today. My sister graduated Ohio State, And she worked her only career job at Procter & Gamble for 34 and a half years in global world trade. My mom went back to work when I was 10 years old, and she spent 25 years with the same dentist as a dental hygienist. My dad taught me and my sister, as a nuclear family, they are my mentors and my heroes, all of them. My mom and dad have passed now, but they taught me and have my dad verbalized stability, commitment, dedication, and loyalty. Those were my dad's values, and they were anchored into everything that he did with my mom and my sister. And my sister would say the same thing: dedication, commitment, loyalty, and stability. Wow. Those are anchors for my dad. That sense of concern for him being a great parent and being a great spouse and being a great employee, all the things he did with his career. It wasn't about staying with some company that the way you had to. He just did because he was having success and growing and developing success for other people. And my sister too. So that nuclear family kind of thing, I feel very blessed to have that in my background for who I am. So many people I know now, even in my son's divorced. I mean, there's things that are going on for people that are struggling with so many aspects of things. I believe for team growth and for personal growth, it begins with a sense of values. Do you know and do you understand what your values are and how you can reinforce those and stake those and build those into concrete into who you are, as opposed to trying to just meet the needs of everybody else around you, and then you become hopscotched all over the place trying to do different things. And you need to be anchored around who you are and who you want to be. Not easy to do. It takes 360 assessments. It takes a lot of personal inquisition to all that. In fact, one of the things I liked about a boss I had one time years ago, and I don't think you see it as much today as I'd like to see it, and that is when we talk about great leaders and great supervisors, they deliver a great insight, and they got great perspective, and they check their motivations, and they listen well and all that, and they ask for feedback and this. I don't know that I have a lot of experience with a lot of managers who ask for feedback. Does your manager come to you and say, hey, how am I doing? Am I doing an okay job? What do you think? Are there some things I should change? And we talk a good game about how leaders should ask for feedback. I think it's a huge opportunity for us to get better at that. In fact, I used to say to people on a fairly regular basis, and I've talked to other people now as I do executive coaching, is saying, look, talk to your employees, the new ones, the ones you're not happy with, the ones who you love, the ones who are growing. Ask them all the same thing. What are the things you want me to start doing, stop doing, and continue doing? And you don't just ask it one time. You do it all the time. You talk to them. One-to-ones for an hour, at a conference, at a meeting, in the car. If they get used to you asking that question, they'll be more candid, they'll be more open, and they may actually tell you something you can live with, as opposed to, no, you're doing great, you're fantastic, I wouldn't change a thing. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the things they tell their spouse or things they think about at night. They go, why does he keep doing that? Please share with me. What are the things I should start doing that I'm not doing now? What should I stop doing that frustrates you? Or what should I continue doing that you kind of like? And let them think about it and have them hear that from you regularly. That sense of feedback is a style of leadership we don't talk as much about, and I think it can be very powerful in terms of how we come across to our followers.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to some of the values that I know you hold dear, and some of the values that you shared, as you learned from your father and your parents, about that loyalty and that commitment and that dedication. And those, I'm sure those drive, your purpose, your current purpose or your purpose that you've had throughout your career. So what would you say? And, I've seen all the things that you've talked about firsthand, when we work together. So tell me, Jim, what would you say is your purpose? I know your values, we've talked about that, but what would you say is your purpose?
That's a great question. And I think it is leadership. It's one of my core values. I like the word leadership, what it means, what it stands for. I saw that in my dad. It's the leadership of me being a better Am I checking my self-awareness regularly and getting some self-esteem from other people? And am I helping somebody else and their others and their sense of leadership? My purpose is to build leadership in myself and others, whether they're in a pharma company or a lighting company or a car company or a pet food store, whatever they want to try and do. Am I helping somebody? And it's interesting also that I've learned over the years, and I think you heard the quote I may have said before from Mark Twain, the older I get, the smarter my dad was. And I think for a lot of us, we're all better leaders now we are at the age of 50 or 60 than we were at the age of 20 and 30. Because when we were younger, we were trying so much to prove ourselves and to get things done. And now we're trying to listen more, understand more, and check motivations and so forth. So, leadership, trying to make that a more relevant and a more enjoyable and a valuable aspect for other people. That's my purpose, to try and do more of that.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I'd say you have honored your purpose throughout your life and your career, which is the H in our acronym of Social Impact Heroes. So you've definitely honored your purpose and continue to do so. And I'm sure our listeners are hearing that in what you're sharing right now.
Oh, thanks, Rick.
Yeah, of course. So let's transition to, and you've talked a little bit about how you've engaged others that you've encountered in that mission and then in that purpose, right? That you've engaged them, which is our E for hero. But share how you do that. Obviously when you were at Allergan, you were doing it in training others and helping to develop others. Share how you do that now, like in your speaking, or how you might go into an organization, or how you might help to communicate, that leadership and the importance of building others.
I think that's so important, that energy and how to energize the purpose. I have a voice that's kind of loud. I was in a presentation just last night with a group that had the microphone and didn't work. It was only, I think it was 70 people in the room, and we had a bunch of us. It was a big group get together, and the speaker had a very soft voice. And I can tell you, I knew there's people in the back of the room that could not hear this person say things. One of the things that I've learned is I've got a loud voice. I can speak as loud as I need to. I can articulate. I have diction. So energy and how you communicate verbally takes some practice, how to vocalize things, to be loud. Secondly, using humor, I think, is vitally important. I've started stories off with humor, and most of the humor is two things. One, if you're not sure about something, you're trying to make something funny, try and make sure it's about you and make fun of yourself. Don't make fun of other people. Don't blame somebody else and try and make yourself look funny to somebody. Make fun of what you didn't understand or what you didn't get or how that was too silly for you or whatever. Be self-deprecating is number one. And two, if you're going to be funny, be funny. You got to practice it. You got to rehearse it. Try it on somebody at home, somebody who loves you, and try and see how it sounds. Practice it. Comedians, I can assure you, do not get up on stage and talk to somebody for the first time having not tried that joke a dozen times or more. We need to rehearse how we come across as funny or not, and how we're trying to be humorous or not. It's an important aspect. Why? Because our humor is more aligned with all of us. We all want to have a sense of humor within ourselves, but we have to practice it and be self-deprecating. So one, use your voice. Two, use your humor. Three, practice everything as much as you can practice it. Know your audience, know what they're going to try and do and what they need to hear. I can talk to a bunch of Cub Scout kids. It's a very different audience than CEOs. And you got to talk differently to those groups. And you got to use different vocabulary. And then through all of that, storytelling. The masters that we know in our society who maximize their purpose is they've got some good stories about my dad growing up, or about what he told my sister, or what I ride my bike, or what's all that stuff's important. The stories you can tell, and find stories and talk to the people about those things can be helpful too. So those are a few elements I think help the energy that goes along with trying to bring the purpose to life for other people. If that's kind of where you're going in your question, if it wasn't where you're going, then I'll say something else.
No, that makes total sense, Jim, and that does exactly help to engage your audience in your mission, and that helps to rally them to your cause, if you will, because without that, if you can't connect with them, you know, on an energetic level, then they're not going to listen to you, right? If you don't use the humor in the right way, then it's not going to resonate with them. And so, yeah, you're exactly on the right track.
Know your audience, know your purpose, and make it relevant. Here's the other thing too: the less you speak, the more you win. There's a tendency to think, I've got a lot of things to say here today. Really? We're not listening past about 5 or 6 sentences. We're looking at our watch, we've got things to do and go back home. You know, is a side story. It's one of the things I'm a little concerned about with church services and some of that going on today. I think there's a lot of lecturing that goes on. More and more, we want people to be more talkative, to be more extroverted in certain situations, even introversion. We want to share it with each other and talk more. And those sessions where I've been to, where I come home having talked with somebody else and learned about somebody else, are more valuable to me than someone lecturing me in a classroom or a student or a church service. I mean, it used to be the teacher was in the front of the room with all the knowledge. Today we got Google. Yeah, you better figure out some of the way to get people involved in stuff besides just telling them what you know, because it used to be buyer beware. And that does not hold up today because we all know the same thing the buyer does. I mean, the seller.
Yeah, it's so true. And I even noticed that in my coaching of others is that, you know, some of my most successful coaching sessions will say, if you will, and I can think of one I had yesterday with a client, that when I can get them to talk more about what's going on and what they're feeling and how they're dealing with everything, then the more they come up with the answers that they need on their own. And, you know, the more we talk it out, as opposed to me just saying, oh, well, why don't you do this, right? Or why don't you do that? Right. And sure, you know, from experience, I can speak from my experiences, and that helps translate to what they're going through and helps them understand something better and learn and, you know, and hopefully have a better journey. But it is more about engaging them, getting them to speak, getting them to talk, not lecturing. Yeah. I learned that with my kids, right? I mean, you have 5 kids. I learned that with my kids. If you just lecture, they're going to tune you out.
It doesn't work, I can assure you. No, that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's so funny. What a difference. What a change.
Well, instead of saying, there's a tendency for us to say as parents, why don't you try this? Why don't you do that?
Yeah.
The better line for me is, what have you tried? What has worked for you and what hasn't in trying to solve that problem? Let them play back for you what's worked or not worked for them so far. And then I can maybe offer some suggestions, but for me to start off and telling them what to do, I haven't taken into consideration what they may have already tried, or that didn't work out good for them at all. So let them tell me what has worked or what hasn't worked in their past. I do that with executive coaching now too. I've got lots of ideas, but I'm not sharing any of them until I hear what you really think has worked for you or not worked for you.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, as we talk about parenting, I mean, that's something that I've had to learn and grow over the years, and that I still fight on this to this day, because I am a coach and, you know, I am a parent, in that I want to help. I want to give that advice. You know, I feel I have something to offer, and then I fight that, you know, in all relationships, even with my wife. You know, if I fight that and say, oh, no, need to, you know, to resist that because it's not about me, it's about them.
Yeah, in fact, just as a side, but my quote on that is that parenting is largely about safety. Business is largely about growth. You will not take risks and you won't grow if you're not safe. But parents are most concerned about making sure the child is safe first, and then we'll take some risks, and then we'll get some growth. But that's not going to happen until later, until we're actually sure that your seatbelt is on and your shoes are tied. And I know people who in business go off, no seatbelts, no shoe tied, and they're trying to do all kinds of stuff. I'm like, you haven't checked the environment yet to make sure you're even safe to do some of those things. But once it's safe, then you can get some growth, then you can take some risk. But safety is parenting that we're used to at a younger age. As we get older, we forget that we've already got all that safety. Now we got to build some growth into that somehow. It's harder.
Yeah, very true, very true. Well, one of the things that you know, I think is important for you to share is how you ripple that message, how you spread positive change. And you've touched on that, but I like to say that our mess is our message. It's our life stories that help connect us all in what I call our beautiful flawsomeness, because we're all flawed, we're all awesome. And so it's our duty to share those lessons we've learned along the way in the service of others. So you have recently you had, an accident that if you don't mind sharing, just a little bit about that, about how that's maybe, changed the way you interact with others, or how it's, changed you as a person. I think that would be beneficial for people to hear about that.
Well, thanks. And I will share the accident along those same lines. The things we talk about leadership, and I can assure you, I've made mistakes. I've screwed things up, and I've spoken too fast, or done some things too aggressively, or not enough, and not said it enough when I should have said more. Those all are things that you think about as a leader. The issue for me with the accident was a bicycle accident where I was going down a street and going pretty fast with a buddy. And this was about 2 years ago, but the bicycle, the front wheel hit the curb at an angle that the concrete was broken. I didn't know it. And my speed went from about 35 miles an hour to 0. And the bike front wheel flipped, went at a completely different angle and threw me straight up in the air 12 feet. And I was, at this point, completely unconscious. I don't remember any of that. And I have no memory for the next 3 months, as I was in the hospital for 3 months. I was on life support. I was in a coma. I was in ICU for over a month. I was in the hospital for a month. I had massive lung, my right lung ribs were not just cracked, they were gone. And my lung was flattened and gone. My sternum was there. My heart was there. My left ribs were there, but this was gone. And my clavicle was broken. My pelvis was cracked. My brain was struggling. I had brain surgery, not just skull surgery. I had brain surgery. I was there for 3 months and lost 25 pounds of living in a bed. I couldn't walk. I was completely comatose. Whoa. I get all this from my wife, who told me that, she didn't see me in the hospital until Wednesday after the bike accident on Saturday. And I was completely comatose, and the doctors and they only saw her. By the way, I was in the hospital for almost 3 months. My wife saw me 3 times, and they brought her in to say goodbye.
Wow.
I wasn't going to make it. So they were there to help. They were going to let her in to say goodbye. She did see me the Wednesday after the back accident on Saturday. She told me, and she asked the doctor, what's up with the lungs? I mean, it's gone. I mean, what he's even still. He said, well, we understand that he's unrecoverable. And so we're doing the best we can to see if we can keep him alive for a little while longer. It was a bike accident of a magnitude that I haven't witnessed, and I was stunned by. Obviously, it's been 2 years, and I'm about 95%. I'm back pretty good. I think the couple doctor visits I still have, I have a lot of doctor visits actually. They're amazed. They're stunned. One of the upsides is that because of COVID, and I was in the hospital back, this is April of 2020, there were some massively incredible surgeons that were doing nothing in the hospital because hospitals were pretty much closed. There was nobody going, there was no elective surgeries, there was nobody doing anything. And they'd come by my room because here's the one patient who really is struggling. And they would get advice from other kinds of doctors to try and help me. And I didn't know any of that. But so you learn your values as you come through something like that. And I'm about 95% now. I still forget things in conversation. I cry too easily. I get mad too easily. My emotions are still in check. I worry a little bit too much about, so I overthink things. Project used to take me a couple hours to put together. Now it takes me a couple days to put it together. I can still do the stuff I want to at work, but I can't do it as fast. I got to think about it more. I don't really need to, but I feel like I need to. And part of it's the pandemic, some of the stuff I was doing with leadership and coaching and hotels and national meetings and presentations, a lot of that went away anyway. So between my health and then because the pandemic, a lot of that stuff I have to go back and say, what did I used to say about these things? What did I used to say about that? Remind myself on things. And you know what? It's a learning. It's a struggle. I'm still here. And you and I both know people who struggle and are barely here. I'll tell you one quick story. I was in the courtyard in this recovery area, and I'd been in the hospital for almost 3 months. I went to a rehab center in San Diego for another, few weeks, but I was being told I was kind of getting ready to go home, and which, by the way, my wife told me that the description I gave of my home isn't the home I lived in now. It's one I lived in years and years ago. I'd gotten all confused what my even home was. I went to a home. I didn't even have a picture of my right home. But I said to the guy in the courtyard, this guy was walking around with a patient, and I said, I think we're going home this weekend. He said, yeah, I don't know. And I said, well, wait a minute. They told us we're here for a couple of weeks. I've been here for almost a week and a half. I've had some of the doctor appointments. I'm supposed to be going home. We're going home, man. How long have you been here? 12 and a half years. The man had been there for 12 and a half years. It's his new home. It's where he lives. He can barely talk. He can barely think. He has a room with a toilet and a bed, and he gets food every day. I saw him cleaning up dishes in the cafeteria one day. I thought he worked there. It's his life. I'd been there for 2 weeks and was just chomping at the bit to get out of there. He's younger than me. Was in better shape, about as good a shape as I'm in. Things you learn about other people and what they're going through and what you think is a terrible, pivotal problem for yourself, maybe. But my learning is about other people, what they struggle with. And the other line I like to say is that, look, sometimes we win and sometimes we learn. And there's no losing. There's no failure. There's no can't do it. It's things I've learned about myself today I didn't know yesterday, and some things I'll learn tomorrow about me I didn't know then either. And so that's a line from John Maxwell, by the way. It's a book he wrote. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And it helps me because I begin to realize I may be right, but the interest of being right or kind, I'd rather be kind. I'm closer to my values and yours too, and you said that earlier. So that's kind of the thing that went through the accident and so forth. And my wife will have to tell me some characters in TV shows. I had to ask her, who's this again and what are they doing? Just last night, these people were having dinner and after that program I was at, and they said something about their dog. And it's a Toto dog. And we're going on a conversation for just 2 more sentences. And it's the Toto dog, the Wizard of Oz, the little Scottish Terrier dog. And his name was Toto. And I said, yeah, and your dog, and I could not think of the dog's name. They had just said it to me 30 seconds earlier, Toto, like a Wizard of Oz dog. And I had to look at my wife and she just said, Toto. I said, yes, your dog Toto. I forget. My memory's kind of gone a little bit. And people go, that happens all the time. I've got that too. I know, but I didn't used to have that. So now all of a sudden I do and begin to realize, got to be more patient on some things and more aware of others. So.
Yeah, but I think that, thank you for sharing all that, Jim, because, you are still here, you are still learning, you are still growing, you're still recovering. 95% is great after 2 years, but who's to say you won't, get to 100 in, another 2 months or 3 months or year or whatever. And the big thing is that you learn from the experience, like your quote from John Maxwell, right? You learned something. And that's the key, probably a lot, but you learned some things about yourself, about others, and it sounds like you're continuing to learn.
I'll tell you what and thank you. And about the learning pieces you just said, that reminded me of another story that in the rehab in San Diego about the accident. And it's interesting for me is that I was getting ready to go home. That was on that guy in the courtyard. It was like a Thursday, I think, whatever, lunchtime. And I heard that he'd been there 12 or is going to be there 12 and a half years. Or has been there about 12 and a half years. The next day at lunch, I'm getting ready to go home. The next Saturday morning, I think this is Friday at lunch, and I'm sitting at this little table. A couple memories I have. Before that, I had no memories for 3 months, no memories. I've started to get a few back now. And this guy across the way gets ready to sit down for lunch, and I've met him a couple times. His name's Skyler or something. I hadn't really met him a couple times. He's in a wheelchair. I'm not sure if he was born in a wheelchair, but he's in a wheelchair. He's got bad legs. And his chest, he's got a sweatshirt on that's only partly covered his chest. He's got scabs and scars all over his chest, and his face is just full of scars and scabs. And he's sitting down there at lunch, a couple down from me, a little bit across the way from me. And during lunch, he just starts bawling like a baby. I mean, he's losing it. And I'm getting, I get this. I mean, this guy, his life is ruined. He's younger. He's stronger, looking stronger, but he's all ripped up. He's all beat up. He's in a terrible crisis, in a terrible state. And I get that. And this is terrible. And he turns to the guy next to him as I've already thought this through in my own mind. And he says to the guy, this food, it tastes so good. I just hope it's a good sign of my recovery. He is tasting food and he's praying for hope. He's praying for joy. He's praying for gratitude. He's praying for recovery and generosity. And all I saw was fear, pain, death, immobile. The lesson I went back to my room and prayed that afternoon too. And Hebrews 11:1 stood out for me that says, faith is the evidence that we search for. Or I'm sorry, faith is the reality that we search for and the evidence that we cannot see. Hebrews 11:1 became an anchor for me that day for faith and what it means that it's the reality that we hope for, but it's the evidence that we cannot see. And people in pain and people in misery, I never would have thought that about the man. I assumed he was terrified of dying. He was hopeful for recovery and hopeful that the food tasting good meant something to his future. That's going to stick with me for a while. Hebrews 11:1 does for me too. So I thank you for letting me share that. I don't share that with a lot of people, but it's one that's important to me that I do feel like the accident. I guess I was supposed to be exposed to that. I was supposed to see that, and it still sticks with me today. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you very much for sharing that story, because I think it is a powerful story. And I think in sharing the quote, in sharing Hebrews 11:1, that it is an example of how your faith has grown, of how, others can have faith in difficult situations, and how others can seek to, learn and grow from the different experiences, and, just have faith that it will have meaning. Whatever difficulty you're going through now, that it will have meaning and that it does have a purpose.
Nice summary, Rick. Thank you. That's very good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I get. That's what I get from that. So thank you very much for sharing that, Jim. And, without knowing it, just in the past, few minutes of sharing your stories and everything, you talked about just checking those boxes. You check that box of the O of a hero, of opening your heart to the world, because, you've been authentic and vulnerable, and you're sharing your heart and soul with others. And that's the true definition of a hero. So, I knew you were a hero beforehand, but now you've solidified that for all of our listeners. So whether you agree or not, you are a social impact hero. So thank you. But
you're welcome for that. In fact, the openness thing, I see that now, and that you sense that's how I approach openness. I am fairly open, and it's helped me to explore other people if I'm open to them about who I am or what's going on for me. And there's other stories of things that I've failed at or struggled at or had some success with we can talk about. The four things that I learned from Leadership Challenge about leadership that meant the most to me is that the number one thing of all the things that we're talking about for leaders, the book is it just happened to have it because I used it on another conference call earlier. It's called The Leadership Challenge. It's Posner and Kosh's book, the Leadership Challenge. Page 79 talks about what do we follow. Leadership is more based not so much on what we're doing, but what followers need, want, and aspire to be good followers. The number one thing we will follow is honesty. You can be a lot of different things, but if you're not honest, it's going to hinder your leadership. Followers will follow honesty. Number two, have a vision. Great honesty, but you got to have a plan. Where are we going? I'll follow you if I think I got some idea where you're going. Where do you want this to go? What do you want this to look like? I need a vision. Number three, you better have some competence and some skills and some talents, because I know lots of leaders who talk a good game, but you got to do. You better be honest. You better have a sense of vision where you're going. You better be able to do some things. And number four, inspire me. Touch my heart. Figure out some way to emotionally connect me, not just the cognitive and competitive aspects of things, the thinking and the what of stuff. You better inspire the who. And by the way, the who, we're all different. Some are introverts and extroverts, and some are deep and some are shallow. Hey, to inspire people is number four, is the top four things we follow: honesty, vision, competence, and inspiration for me are the anchors that I use about leadership. And that all falls into your dovetailing around, what's the purpose of what you're trying to do. That's why leadership's important to me, is to think about what do followers need or want. And that's why I happen to have that book handy, because I kind of like that with Barry Kozner and James. Make sure I say it right. It's James Koshis and Barry Posner. Barry Posner teaches at Arizona State, where my son went. But anyway.
Well, thank you for sharing, because that does fit very well, and it does help to solidify your purpose and the importance of leadership in everything that we do. So I appreciate you sharing that, Jim. So, as I said at the top, and you've showed that throughout our interview, is that you are an excellent storyteller, and that's one thing I've always loved about you and loved listening. I said earlier how my dad was one of my heroes, and he was a great storyteller as well. And I just love hearing a message in a story, getting a message, something like that. I mean, you're excellent at that. So one thing we talk about on the podcast is we talk about what we've termed a spark moment. And a spark moment in life is when our actions have a ripple effect that goes far beyond the initial act. So it can be that, someone did something for you, and that was a spark moment that changed the trajectory of your life, or something that you did for someone else. So I'd like you to share a story of positive change. It's an example of a spark moment in your life where, either someone impacted you or you did something that impacted someone else. And then, later you saw that had a big impact. I could say that meeting you was a spark moment for me, but share something that comes to mind for you.
Well, there's so many things that first come to mind about people who've helped me when it wasn't in their best interest to help me. I was on another team. I wasn't doing a good job on certain things, and they somehow found it in their heart to help me in some things that became very valuable. And I've got a few of those. The one that I hadn't thought about for a long time that for some reason just popped out as you were asking about that was one where I had a young woman on my team that had wanted to grow into a sales career. She was an analyst. And she saw these salespeople getting big bonuses, and she's doing all the data, and she sees the trips they're taking and the President's Club stuff and all this. And she kind of talks to me about being in sales, and she's an analyst, and she hasn't got any background in any of that kind of stuff. I'm thinking to myself, it's going to be a pretty hard stretch. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a request from a senior leader in the company, president, my boss, wanted some details. And it happened to be some stuff I knew she could probably do as well as I could do. So I asked her if she'd help me with that, and she did. She came to my office, and we spent some time, and she went to the meeting with me. And then the next meeting he called, I couldn't make it because I was going to be out of town. And I said, would it be okay if she went? And he said, okay. Not only did he get a better impression of her, did she get a better understanding of why he was asking the data. It positioned her to get promoted, and she got promoted 2 more times. She became a sales manager. She became a leader, a director, and went to another company later on and had a great career success with them. And largely, I know it has happened because I saw an opportunity for her to get the experience she had in detail management, which was phenomenal, to a senior leader that would help them. And I knew she had capabilities to be a salesperson, but I didn't think she'd ever had any training in that. Turns out she didn't need much of that. She had great insights about people. She had great insights about information. She's calling on physicians, many of them who were introverted and liked the data. She was great at it. So it was a great relationship I've had with her over the years, and I think she's been very appreciative of that. But that's one of the things I think is you see things that people can help you. You help them, and it may shape wonderful things for them in the future. And it's been very pleasurable to see her success in her career in an area that I don't think anyone would have ever thought she'd go into that area. And it's worked out very well.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic, Jim, because again, it's an example. That is a perfect example of a spark moment. It's one small, you could look at the initial time where you said, hey, can you help me with the data? And that one moment had that ripple effect that changed her life completely, changed the trajectory of her life completely. Had you not done that, I'm not a big what if guy, but had you not done that, then let's say she said, well, I'm stuck here. I'm only going to be an analyst. Maybe she goes and gets a job elsewhere as an analyst. She stays an analyst unhappy. Who knows, right? But because you saw something in her and you gave her opportunity, look at the impact that she had over her life and her career. And that's what I love about those spark moments.
I think that's very cool, Rick. And I never thought of it that way as a spark moment, but to hear you talking about it and how you think about sparks and how that helps other people emerge and grow, good for you. And it's a thought process around emerging and growing that I hadn't really thought about before, how that spark of change can make a huge difference in ourselves and other people. And so thanks for illuminating that for me as we think about those kinds of sparks that we offer to ourselves and to others. That's cool, Rick. Very cool.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And in fact, I was calling it just like a ripple effect. And then I was on this other show with Mark and Kathy. They put this show on, and they helped me coin the term spark moment. So a little shout out to them for helping me do that. But as we near the end of the show, Jim, I know our audience is going to want to learn more about you. So, I know your website is jimtrunick.com, if I'm not mistaken. Your book is The Core of Leadership, which is an excellent book for anyone interested in leadership. There you go. You have it there. I have a signed copy myself, so
Oh, wow. Good for you. Yeah, it's endorsed by Ken Blanchard. I do like that part too, but I've got the book. I'm on LinkedIn, so Jim Trunick under LinkedIn. Jim@jimtrunick.com is my email, and jimtrunick.com is my website also. So you go to the website, jimtrunick.com, you'll see my website there. And there's all kinds of blogs in there too. There's a couple of years with 150, 200 blogs I've got in there about terminations and about tasks and about management and leadership and all kinds of stuff I've enjoyed over the years. And so I need to go back and look at a few of those. I stopped writing them about a couple of years ago with recovery from my accident. But I went back the other day and looked at, hey, there's some stuff in here. I got to go back. There's some good stuff in here.
Oh, I'm sure that's a gold mine. That's like a treasure trove in there. I remember looking at that before, but I'll have to go back and dig through some of those because, I'm sure that is a gold mine. Well, so Jim, our goal at iSpark Change is to positively impact 1 billion people in the next 5 years through our community and our work and our future social media platform, which will start growing in 2023. Now, we know we can't do this alone, so we need the help of leaders like yourself, you're a perfect example, to help show others the way, because many people feel, as I used to, that they're too small and they can't make a difference. So, we appreciate you sharing all your wisdom and your knowledge on the podcast today. We also value your thoughts and opinion as a social impact hero. So I'm going to ask you to the final question that I ask all my guests on the iSpark Change podcast. All right. I want you to peer into our iSpark Change crystal ball and tell me, what can the world become if everyone starts focusing on their leadership, helping others, improving others, improving themselves, and having an impact on our future?
I call it positivity. And that with a sense of positivity, we can overcome all setbacks. Life is a challenge. Life is not easy. We need positivity. We need aspirations to grow. I answered that question in my mind as you were talking about that just a second ago, Rick. I'm thinking we just need some more pleases and some more thank yous, some more appreciates it. I heard a quote the other day I thought was interesting. What are the two things kids say when they're born? The first words, mommy and then daddy. Somewhere in the top two, mommy and daddy. You know what the number 3 and 4 words are of newborns? Mine and more. We got to change that somehow to start leaning into yours and ours. And somehow that people lean into the fact that we're all in this together. We all have successes. We all have struggles. I don't care if you're homeless or you're Donald Trump, you're still sleeping 8 hours a day somewhere, going to get some rest. 1/3 of everybody's day is the exact same. So we just need to figure out ways to appreciate each other more, to compliment each other more, say please and thank yous, and that builds positivity. And I think we need that to survive a lot of the challenges that come at us because we're human beings in a very competitive world and a struggling world. Positivity can lead us to, and by the way, most species of animals don't have that. We can win. Positivity.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, that's my thought.
You're speaking my language, Jim, with the positivity and the positive change and everything we're about at iSpark Change. So, thank you for taking time to share your heart and wisdom with our audience, Jim. You came in, you over-delivered, as I knew you would. Your passion, empathy, and leadership are all evidence. You're humble, faith-filled, and you lead with a heart of gratitude, which tells me you're going to continue to have success in all facets of life. So this is only the beginning of your time as a social impact hero. So thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you, Rick, very much. Appreciate it greatly.
Remember, impact heroes, every positive action can be a spark moment that has a ripple effect that spreads far beyond the initial act. So go out there and spark change. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, then please smash that 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify and leave a review. We value your comments and we want to hear from you in the community. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the iSpark Change podcast.